Hi, and welcome to this broadcast of the M Cluster. My name is Slider, I'm your host, and tonight we're going to be discussing Serenity. With me is Brandon.
How you guys doing? Hope you enjoy it.
And we've got Tyrone.
Hey, how's it going?
So Serenity is a movie that I haven't really heard of. It's made by some director, can't remember his name. And you guys remember who we're talking about?
I think it's the same guy that did Avengers.
Avenger. Oh, that's right, Joss Whedon. Yes, I seem to remember something about liking him. So when it comes to Serenity, you can't really discuss it without discussing the show that came from it, which is Firefly. I put out the background video on that. But basically, it was a short-lived show that Fox decided to cancel in its infinite wisdom. And it was not well received in the time slot that it was put in. But it has one of the biggest cult followings of any show that's ever been put out. Just to give you a little background on it, it's basically a cast of 9. And you've got a captain, his first mate, the pilot, a hired gun. You have 3 passengers and a registered companion who is renting a shuttle on that ship. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this is it's an envisioning of the future from the eyes of Joss Whedon, and he really took into account the things that are going on today. And he imagined this future where the 2 superpowers that are in power now, which are basically the United States and China, are the only 2 that survived. And when this Earth was no longer capable of sustaining life, we pushed out and merged as a culture. So even your average everyday person speaks English and Chinese. And that's kind of the world that they're in. And they actually found multiple planets, multiple moons that they could terraform in order to do that. First of all, what do you guys think of the movie?
Well, it was good. You really have to watch the series to take advantage of the whole movie to understand it. But it was good.
See, I, on the other hand, I saw the movie first. After I saw the movie is when I decided to watch the series, and at that point, I became a fan really, really quick.
Well, that's one of the nice things about this movie, is that you don't have to have watched the series to understand what's going on. I mean, it certainly enhances it. But you definitely want to, if you want to get the full experience, you want to watch both, preferably the series first and then the movie. But you can get the full effect by just watching the movie and then coming into the show.
Well, I tend to disagree on that point. It felt like if you didn't see the series, you were lost in a lot of things. There was a lot of references back to the series, and also the character development wasn't there if you didn't watch the series. Like if you didn't see the series, you didn't care who these people were, or you didn't care how they got into this situation. It pretty much just wrapped up, River Tam's storyline, and you didn't really care about anyone else or why, the captain and how the captain and his first mate, got along, how the doctor fit into it. You just didn't really care unless you saw the series.
Now, I really, really, on a visceral level, disagree with you on that point, but I did see the series first, so it's a little hard for me to say that. So we're going to have to default to Brandon here. Brandon, who saw the movie before the show. What do you think, Brandon?
Well, I think that is kind of true. That's actually why I saw the series afterwards. Once I got done with the movie, I felt that the main character, honestly, was a cross between River and Mal. It was both of them. The other people kind of just faded into the background compared to those 2.
Well, they were the main protagonists. I mean, Mal was the hero, per se, and River served 2 functions. She was the mystery, and she was a damsel in distress. And again, coming from the point of view where I saw the show first, I don't see where you guys are coming from with that. And I've known other people who have seen the movie first before the series, and they didn't feel that way either. So I have a little bit of I mean, I disagree, obviously, but I can't see it from your point of view.
It feels like the movie itself couldn't stand on its own, and it felt more like a 2-hour wrap up than an actual standalone movie. But it was good. It was, I really enjoyed it. But without the story development and the character development of the series past, you're really hard to actually experience and enjoy it in its entirety. Case in point, the Shepherd. The Shepherd was a huge part in the series, but he got like maybe 3 scenes in the movie. And really, if you just see the movie by itself, you really don't care who the Shepherd is. Like, why is it so clever that he said, you'll never, I don't have to tell you about my backstory. Why does that matter? I mean, you never really experience half the mystery, and you're left with sort of half a experience if you don't see the series.
I guess I can see where you're coming from, although again, I mean, I don't want to keep repeating myself because I didn't feel that way, but there was a lot of controversy about the way they dealt with the characters from the fans, not just from people who hadn't been a part of the series, but the way the fans perceived the way he was treating it. Because you're right, Serenity was essentially season 2 of Firefly. One of the things that Joss Whedon reveals was that if the Firefly show had taken off, they would have discovered the planet Miranda at the end of season 2. So this entire movie was building up to them finding the planet and then what they were going to do about it. So, that you're absolutely right in that sense, that it does flow with the show. As far as whether or not you care for the characters, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on that one. I can't, I can't approach it from the view of someone who hasn't seen it before. But there was this. Just the success of the movie and of the show really is based on the chemistry between characters. Right? I mean, he really took that group of people and made them seem like a functioning or dysfunctioning family, if you would. He wrote everybody was relevant, and unlike the movie where you said like the Shepherd only had a few scenes, the Shepherd was part of the crew. He was on the ship. He interacted with them daily. So it was the way they came together and the way they dealt with the problems that they had that really made the show as important as it, or as good as it was. And that really did translate over into the movie. And again, coming at it from a different angle, Brandon, what do you think about that? What do you think about the way the characters related to each other in the movie as opposed to the way they did in the show?
Well, seeing the movie first didn't really do a lot of it justice to the way they interacted in the show compared to the movie, like especially with the Doctor and Mal. You didn't really see a lot of that tension in the show as much as it was at the start of the movie when they were butting heads. You did see Kaylee a lot with being interested in the Doc. That definitely lent itself and showed itself in the movie. I wish the Shepherd was more, or had a larger spot in the movie.
Well, one of the things that I found out when I was reading up on the movie was that not only was it in the interest of the story, but from a contractual standpoint, the reason they treated some of the characters the way they did, for example, Shepherd Book could not contractually obligate himself to further sequels if the movie didn't take off, and the studio basically said if they don't sign on for sequels, they can't. You can't keep them in the movie. So the way Joss dealt with that was to deal with the character in the way he did, which was obviously to kill the Shepherd. And Wash, oh my gosh, how much crap has he taken for killing Wash? But Wash simply wasn't available to contractually obligate himself to a series of movies.
Well, the movie felt more like the end climax of the series. Like all the build-up happened in the series. and it all came wrapped up in the movie. That's how I felt about the storylines of.
Be more specific. I'm not sure.
Well, I was caveating on Wash getting killed off and the shepherd getting killed off, and Kaylee and the doctor finally hooking up, and it felt like it was at the end of the movie. It was actually just to finish off the series.
Well, yeah, it definitely was them wrapping up the story. They didn't plan on really, taking it any further than that, because if you remember what happened with the series, it actually got cut off. And you only got, I think it was 11 episodes of the original 14 that were filmed. And they were aired out of order. They weren't aired in the order that they had intended. So the show itself felt like there was an untold story there, that they had to finish telling the story that they had started. So when they got into that, they were having the fans did a big campaign about bringing Serenity to the big screen. And when Fox finally gave them the go-ahead, I'm sorry, not Fox, Universal gave them the go-ahead, they took that opportunity to finish telling that story that they had started with the show.
I feel that they left some stuff out, though. I mean, I wish they would have maybe just put a note in there as to what happened with, the Blue Hands and the Bounty Hunter, and just little things like that.
Well, the Bounty Hunter was part of the show, and I thought they brought that up pretty well. I mean, they put him out into space, and it wasn't. It was highly unlikely that somebody was going to pick him up or somebody was going to find him. Now, could they have gone that way and done something with that? Sure, they could have, but it is only a 2-hour movie. And while there are no talks of sequels, often people ask Joss Whedon what would he do with the story, and he has not written off bringing back characters that he has killed off. So he might, bring up a prequel. He might, tell a story that happened, in between the show and the movie. There could be any number of scenarios that would occur. So he does still have, there are characters that could be dealt with in a sequel, but at this time, as far as I know, there aren't any plans to do so.
Okay, I would like to take a moment and talk about the Reapers themselves.
All right.
Like, they come off like really mystical and like angry, and then you find out it's just a mutation of sorts. And I was just wondering how were they so hard to put down? How were they so hard to kill? And what took so long for the Alliance themselves to cover it up? Because it felt like the Alliance didn't want to deal with them at all. Yet there was no real resolution to that.
Well, the Reavers were actually a side effect of a chemical that they were putting into the atmosphere to make people more docile. And that was kind of part of the point of what was going on Miranda. We basically had people that were so docile, so subdued, that they just stopped doing the things that were necessary to live. And they all died. Now, a tenth of the population had a opposite effect, and it increased their aggressor response. It increased their adrenaline. It increased the way that anger and that strength that they had was basically an effect of the drug. So the one thing that I didn't care for when it came to the Reavers is they portrayed them as these savage, mindless beasts, but yet they were capable of space travel, and they had a chain of command. They ran their ships, although dangerously. They were still people, and they still were. I don't want to call them a civilization, but there was some intelligence to them. They weren't just mindless. And some people said they did have a problem with that they thought it was a Deus Ex Machina on the part of Joss Whedon to do that, but that was actually Joss Whedon's intention all along. The Reavers were always going to be a product of the Alliance. Going back to something that Brandon had said, the Men in Blue, the men with the blue gloves. I would have liked to have seen some sort of wrap up with that, but again, it was it's a trade-off. You had to tell a story that could be told in a format that the studios were going to allow. So that was one of the things that got cut out. Now there's tons and tons and tons of fan fiction out there that involves the Blue Hand people, but fanfic is just kind of what you come across when you're on the internet. I don't think you're ever going to see that brought to screen. However, with things like Google Plus Hangouts, you never know. Maybe there's some group out there that might decide they want to bring the people, the men with the blue hands to life. Maybe Joss Whedon will do something that he did with Dr. Horrible and produce a little mini-series that is for the internet only, dealing with them. So it's not outside of the realm possibility that we're going to find out more about what's going on with them. But in coming back to the Reavers, they were basically men affected by this human behavior modification adversely, and that's what did it. That's it's kind of like you hear the stories of a mother picking up a car to get it off of a child. They have that heightened response all the time, as opposed to just having it, in a state of emergency.
I definitely feel that they should have been more intelligent, or shown to be more intelligent, I should say. It just seemed kind of off the way, as you said, they can fly ships, they can repair them, but yet they were unable to communicate?
Well, they've actually never been portrayed as repairing a ship. Basically, they always stole their ships, and they ran their ships in such a fashion that would kill most people. So I'm not saying that they never did repair their ships, but there's nothing that ever specifically mentioned them doing that. But yeah, they were spacefaring people that were portrayed as just completely animalistic and psychotic and not having structure, which obviously couldn't have been the case.
My problem is it's like the Alliance made them happen. They made this problem. They were aware of it. How come they didn't just go and fix it right away?
Well, the Alliance also killed everyone on Miranda. It's not something that they wanted to broadcast. It's not something they wanted everybody to know.
No, yeah, exactly. Why leave the evidence of the Reavers of what happened on Miranda so the whole universe can see?
Because no one was going to be dumb enough to go to Miranda through the Reavers. Obviously, with one exception, but for the most part, no one was going to be dumb enough to go through that.
Well, when you say they're not going to go through the Reavers, remember, the whole thing about Miranda was it was removed from the records. They wiped it off. They wiped it out of history. They rewrote history to act as if that place didn't exist. And if you had a giant initiative for the Alliance to go after the Reavers to put down that menace, somebody would have known. I mean, it's very difficult to have a huge movement like that and not attract attention.
It just seemed really irresponsible of the government of the time to let their people be killed.
Well, it was irresponsible of the government to try to modify the behavior of the people. One could argue that it was irresponsible to not allow the outer planets to to have a separate government like other countries do, instead of trying to keep, they were acting like the empire, like like the British or the Romans, going out and taking over everything. There's lots of irresponsibility in their government.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, that just upset me and bothered me more than anything.
Well, one of the things I really dislike about Serenity, and it's one of my favorite movies, obviously, and by one of my favorite directors, but in Serenity, they never gave you the opposing view. It was always a view from the hero's side. And you get that in a lot of stories, but you never got that idea that Okay, so you had the Browncoats who were basically crushed. They were the Independents who were crushed by the Alliance, and you always saw Captain Reynolds' idea of what independence was, and that side of it always involved doing things that were illegal. Now, many of those things were illegal because the Alliance didn't want them to happen, not necessarily because they were bad, but the idea that the Independents only did things that were illegal, or they only showed the Independents doing things that were illegal or nefarious, was something that really turned me off about the show. There was an episode where they were on a planet and the Doctor and River get kidnapped by a group of people, and they're basically like the
religious cult.
Like a religious cult, exactly. And it's just, like the Independents are all backwood, redneck types, and only the civilized are on the core planets. And I just don't think that's how it would really shake out. I mean, yes, things were harder on the outer planets, but there has to be some segment of people that like to do things differently that aren't going to. I refuse to believe that the societies were completely homogenized, down the middle, the civilized and the uncivilized.
Well, I agree with that, and it seems like you were made to hate the Alliance. Like you were made to hate the ruling government. So.
Well, that's just like you're made to hate the Empire in Star Wars. There were lots of planets that were completely unaffected by them, and I'm sure there's core worlds and things like that that are unaffected by the Alliance here, really. They just go about their lives. They just don't show that aspect of it.
Yeah, well, at least they didn't do a Stormtrooper 9/11 type deal where they just killed off half a whole core ward.
No, the Alliance did that. It was called Miranda.
Yes.
Yeah, that's more of a Stockholm type deal.
And the operative would be Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So who would be the Emperor?
Some guy we haven't met. Some guy high up in the Alliance.
Okay, so what would the Doctor be? If we're talking in those terms, you've got the Doctor
Malcolm
who runs
Reynolds.
the Alliance.
Malcolm Reynolds is Han Solo. Okay.
Right.
We can start right there.
So that would make Inara Leia.
Leia, yes.
Although it would make River Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
River would be Luke. No, it kind of feels like the Doctor would be more of a...
That would mean River would want to kiss Inara. Mm.
Hey, I'd watch that.
Yeah, there's a show that could be made.
So what did you guys actually think of the operative?
I thought the operative was a great character. He was intelligent. He was not a brute. He did what was necessary, and he had no doubts about what he was doing, and he acknowledged it. One of my favorite parts that involved the operative is when they were going back to Shepherd Book's moon, and they get there, find that everybody's been killed. And he goes into the ship, and the operative broadwaves and starts talking to him. And Mal says to him, "I don't kill women and children." And the operative says, "Well, I do." And he knows what he is. He says, we're doing things to make a better world, worlds without sin. And in that world, there's no place for me because I'm a monster. He knew what he was doing. He knew he had a goal. He knew how he came across, and he knew that he was almost like a Moses figure in that he felt his mission was important enough that he did not have to be there. He did not have to be part of it. He did not have to arrive at the outcome. And while he did do despicable things, I thought just as a character he was wonderfully written. I think, he had issues, but he really believed in what he was doing.
He disappointed me a little bit at the end, where he didn't just finish off the crew of Serenity. He let them live, Like,
there was no point in killing them. He said his mission had failed.
no,
There was no point in pursuing it anymore because that's what the Alliance was trying to keep from being broadcast, and now it's broadcast.
you could spin it. You could lie more. It didn't seem like the Alliance would just stop there. It's like, oh, the truth got out. I guess we're beat. No, like,
well, he wasn't the Alliance. He was he was operating on behalf of the Alliance. He was operating under a certain belief, and when they showed him that information, he realized that the Alliance had not exactly been 100% truthful with him, so his mission had been skewed. So what he said was that there was no point to killing them. The damage was done. And he also said that I don't know that they are going to let it be at that because they are not forgiving and they don't forget.
Yeah. I don't know, it just seemed like they got away too easily.
I wouldn't say too easily. I mean, they lost 2 main characters.
They had their ship pretty much destroyed, although the Alliance did rebuild it. Even though
Well, I wouldn't say the Alliance. I would say the Operative.
Well, yeah, the Operative used Alliance resources, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Which I'm sure the Alliance is not going to be happy about.
Right.
Yeah, they still got away too easily, though.
So you're just saying you wanted bloodshed. You just wanted them to hack and slash.
Oh, no, throw them in prison.
Go ahead.
No, throw them in prison. That's fine.
This isn't Seinfeld.
Throw them in prison. Yeah.
Throw them in prison and then what? How does that wrap up the story?
Torture them and interrogate them until they break. Make you feel really bad about the brown coats. Make
how does this come out good then?
Yeah, you make them a martyr, and then you
What?
start off with another ship.
And a
And
martyr
the brown
for...
coats rise again.
So what you're saying is that they should, instead of hack and slash, that they should have been caught and killed slowly.
Yes.
Okay, so
Exactly.
that we had the chance for someone else to come along and make a different story?
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't see it.
That's why there's tons of fan fiction out there. You know, the brown coats didn't end with Malcolm Reynolds alone.
Well, there's also the role-playing game, which I've played and was fun. I had some of my own fan fiction going on with it. I made myself River's martial arts trainer.
You know, I mean, there's plenty to go with it. Like this whole universe, and we're stuck on one ship. You know.
Well, that's the story that was being told.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the opportunity, maybe an opportunity to get off that ship. And
So you don't want Firefly or Serenity. You want a spin-off show.
yeah, I think a spin-off show would be possible. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, in a spin-off, what would you call it and who would you cast?
Well, going on with I don't know, just to call it maybe like Ladybug or something like that, some other flying bug that's the name of a ship or something. I don't know.
All right, so we're getting a little silly here. Let's refocus it. Okay, so let's look at the character of Inara and her caste, her profession. She was a registered companion, and we call those high-class call girls today, which has a taboo, which has a stigma, which obviously Malcolm Reynolds still subscribed to. Even though he cared for her as a person, he didn't care for her profession. And sure, he had ulterior motives for that, but he called her a whore every chance he got.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that, just the way they came up with that, where you have the professional sex worker who is no longer in the shadows, no longer in a taboo, but highly respected?
Well, it goes along with how the society evolved, you know, how the high class can do what they like. Like she was a companion to the high class. Prostitute, like other kinds of prostitutes, were still looked down upon. You know, they weren't as respected as a
Yeah, they had
companion.
different levels within her. I don't know what you'd call it, her organization.
Well, they had an academy that trained them how to do things. But I mean, we have that sort of
Which is interesting in itself.
Yeah, but we have that sort of separation now in the worlds of what would be called the sex workers. You've got the streetwalkers that are strung out on drugs that everybody kind of looks down on. You have the women that go to strip clubs, and some of them are not so reputable, and things happen there, and they get kind of looked down upon. And then you have these high-class call girls who, they're not exactly glorified, but they're certainly more respected than the other sex workers. So there is some level of hierarchy now. Although, again, it's in the shadows, it's taboo, and whenever it gets brought to light, it causes problems. But, so that's not something that's new. It's just...
it would be the same... I guess it would almost be the same way now. Like, if you met one, you'd be like, oh, okay, I don't mind hanging out with her, but not the kind of girl I want to bring home. Or, to my family. Not the kind of girl I necessarily would want to date, because she's a whore, like Mal said.
And that's the problem with Mal. Mal actually cared for her. He actually, so that to realize the fact that that she is a glorified sex worker, it hurt him. It hurt him, and he wanted to show that he was being hurt, so he wanted to hurt her back, and that's why he called her a whore.
Well, there's a little more to it than that. Basically, it hurt him that it didn't seem to bother her. It wasn't necessarily, he didn't like the way she was treated, but this wasn't something that she was forced into. And this is a choice that she made, and he didn't agree with the choice. He much would have rather had her to himself.
I did like, actually, I did like the episode that dealt a lot with that, where there was going to be that guy that was going to pay for her permanently. I don't remember his name, but that pompous jackass.
Yeah, he was a dude.
Okay. And where Malcolm Reynolds actually was trying to defend her honor, and literally fought for her against him on his terms.
No, he fought on the aristocrat's terms, not on his own terms.
No, yeah, on the dude's terms. That's what I meant.
Yeah, and basically when he did that, he said he was defending her honor, and that upset her. That was not something that she welcomed. She often felt like he was more of a father figure, in terms of chastising him in that respect. And he's like, I'm here to save you, and she says, I don't need saving. This is what I do. This is what I choose to do. This is my business.
You could also kind of tell, though, that she wants Mal to make that offer to be the permanent guy. He won't offer that, though.
Well, Mal's the kind of guy who wants to be able to offer something. He wants to be able to provide for her. He wants to be able to take care of her. Just look at the situation with him and Saffron in Our Mrs. Reynolds. She basically got thrust upon him, and he woke up. He's like, "Oh crap, I'm married. What's going on?" And he didn't take advantage of that. He didn't put her aside. He just was basically saying that, I think more of you than just to keep you as a possession. So it wasn't necessarily just his relationship with her. That's the kind of person he was.
Yeah. So overall, Brandon, how did you feel about the movie? And then, of course, Jose, get your thoughts on it too.
I thought it was a great movie. Definitely worth the watch if you've not seen it before. If you've not seen it before, watch the series as well. The only thing I would have that I didn't like about the movie was the fact that Wash died, being one of my favorite characters.
Well, there's this thing about how Joss Whedon has to make sure that no couples in his universes or in his stories are ever happy.
Yeah, that's what I brought up last time.
Yeah, he did that in Buffy. He did it in Angel, in Firefly. That was part of it. But again, going back to what we were saying earlier, is Alan Tudyk, or however you say his last name, I can never get it right, just simply wasn't contractually available to sign on for more than one movie. So how do you keep that character in the movie and not, and have him as part of the story and not have him be obligated to be in future episodes or in future sequels, you kill him.
Arrest him.
Arrest him.
and you still have, he's still there though. That's the unfinished business. Because remember, they got caught.
There's a lot of unfinished business. There's a lot of unfinished business.
Well, hold on a second. When Malcolm and Wash got caught by the mobster, they went after him. That's what would have happened. They wouldn't have left him sit in jail.
Well, I'm not saying straight out like arrest him. Trying to think of how to describe this. I would say, I guess, almost as a self-sacrifice, like Wash maybe deciding to go with the operative as a way to basically say, oh, the rest of them, they didn't make it, or make some kind of crap up, take me instead, kind of thing, to keep the Alliance off of them.
That would not have had the dramatic punch that Joss Whedon likes to hit his fans with. His fans, we like the abuse. We like it when he tortures his characters that we love.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, any final thoughts, Brandon?
No, outside of that, actually, I'm wanting to know what we're going to do next week, but we'll get to that soon.
Okay, yeah. My take on it is, like Brandon said, if you haven't seen it, watch the series first, then watch the movie. You're going to love both. You're going to wonder why the people at Fox are such idiots and they cancel such great work. Not just talking about Firefly here, but tons of shows that they've done this to. And on that note, we need to go ahead and pick our next movie. So we're going to go ahead and have that drawing done. And we've got Dante. Say hello, Dante. Don't say hello. And what do we got there? We have 061. So 061. And that is...
Star Trek. Star Trek.
Close, Brandon. And it is the Three Musketeers.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Oh, no, we're going to be able to get that there.
Yep.
There you go.
That's the new one, people.
The new one?
In case you haven't seen it.
That would be why it's the 2011.
Well, yeah, your camera was not focused before.
So...
either that, or maybe people thought that it was taking place in 2011 and it was written 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's, completely possible.
All right, so that's what we got to look forward to next time. So until then, thanks for joining us. Remember, we're the M Cluster. You can catch us on our YouTube channel, which is the youtube.com/the M Cluster. You can see us on Google, which is google.com. You can search for us as the M Cluster. You can see us on Facebook. We're facebook.com/the M Cluster. And we're on Twitter @the M Cluster. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Until then, I'm Slider, and that's a wrap.
I'm out.
Yep, and peace.